What's up, guys? This is Stephen Malin at Simple Samples Audio, and today we're taking a look at the Horror Harp version 2.0. This is a new version where I recorded the Horror Harp, which sits right behind me here in the studio. I did a brand new recording session where I smashed it. I used woods and metals and strums and a whole bunch of crazy things to just attack this instrument. Now, a cool story about the Horror Harp: unlike a normal lap harp, it's actually an antique 100-year-old instrument passed down. It's a family heirloom. And what's so neat about this is back in the Great Depression in the 1920s, the strings on the Horror Harp, they couldn't afford strings to replace them, so they used guitar strings. And so here we are 100 years later. It is super detuned, it's atonal, and it just creates this crazy, earthy, cracked sound, which is absolutely terrifying. And I hope you guys will find some great use for it in your music. So in this video, we're gonna take a look at all the different patches, all the new play styles, and all the new knobs and effects that are in the GUI. So let's take a look. First, we're gonna take a look at the GUI, the GUI of how the actual interface works, and then we'll dive through the different sounds in each of the patches. Let's go. So the first thing you'll notice in the Horror Harp version 2.0 is that we have a waveform viewer here in the front. So any patch I play, you'll notice how it's going to show exactly what's happening on screen. And at any point, you can use the key switches here at the bottom. These are the yellow keys and the orange keys to choose between normal and reverse. So if I hit the orange key, it's going to shift all the samples, and now everything's going to play backwards. If at any point you want to switch that back to normal, just click on the key switch C0 there at the bottom, and now everything is back to normal. So notice here on the new rehauled interface, it's still very simple, but we have a few parameters here that we can play around with. The first is the cutoff filter, which is a low pass filter. So while a sample is playing, we can change this. And with any contact parameter, you can right click on any of them, learn the MIDI CC automation, and then perhaps you want to go over to your mod wheel, move it, and now it is associated with that parameter. So while we're playing, we might want to use the mod wheel to change the sound. Just like that. And with any contact instrument, you can right click to remove that MIDI automation if that's not your style. A few other effects we have here. The first is the resonance. This is something that you will not hear any change unless your cutoff frequency is a little bit lower. So let's play around with that for a moment as we hold down a sample. So you notice there's some little squeaky sounds that are very handy if we want to create a very unsettling sound. Perhaps my favorite effect is the shimmer knob. So it's a really deep reverb that also adds a bit of chorus, and more importantly, it adds a full 1 octave 8 VA on top of it. So when we start to play a sample and turn up the knob, it sounds like this. Very effective for widening the sound, but also just making it terrifying. We also have a tube saturator, which the higher you turn it, the grittier and more distorted the sound becomes. So here's an example of that. And you'll notice the tube saturation will sound best when paired with the reverb, the shimmer reverb, or the chorus. So the chorus, it changes this monophonic recording into a stereo. So from mono to stereo. So that's what any chorus will do, but it just widens the sound and creates a very unsettling warbly sound. So here is an example. And of course, anytime you pair these effects together, you're going to get very fascinating sounds. So let me play with all 5 right now with a sample. At any point, if you want to return any of the knobs to their default position at 0%, you can hold the control key on your keyboard and then click on any of these and they will reset to their natural state, which is very useful if you get a little carried away with the effects. So now I want to take a look at each of the patches within this library. We have bows, we have knocks, we have medals, plucks, both a natural tuning of the instrument and a tuned version. We have strums and woods. So let's take a look at each of those, play through the sounds so you can get a better sense of what is actually inside this library. So for the purposes of this walkthrough, I'm not going to change any of the knobs. I want you to hear the natural sounds that come straight out of the box. So I'm going to be playing through the red keys, not the full samples because they're quite long, but I'm going to play through a little snippet of every single one of the red keys so you can get a better sense. So here we go. Here are the bows. So as you can see, there are a ton of options there. We have some slower patches, some longer patches. We have some patches that you could certainly loop. You could tempo sync them as needed to your session. A lot of cool stuff there with bowing. Lots of screechy sounds. Next up, let's look at the knocks. This is the smallest of the patches, but I wanted to record these because I think it's effective to get some thuds in your music. This is just the wooden body of the harp. Next, we have medals. This is where we took screwdrivers and we just attacked the poor harp and made all sorts of crazy, crazy sounds. Let's listen to those. Next up, we have plucks. So the natural instrument itself is highly detuned and the strings are not even in order because of the weird guitar stringing nature of this. So these are not in pitch order whatsoever. This is just the natural pitch if you can even call it that, it's the atonal natural instrument. So if you really want to use this instrument as intended, then I would recommend, even if you wanted to create your own glissando to sound like the real instrument, at any point you could just swipe down or up. If you want more resonance, you could hold your pedal down. But let's play through the actual pitches here that are, again, they're round robin sample, and they are from the instrument itself in the correct natural order. So that is definitely the natural atonal sound. It doesn't have much melodic context, but it's really cool to use in horror. Next, for those of you who really want a tuned version to make, I guess, more pleasant sounds, you could use the tuned version. So all of the pitches were extracted from the natural and reorganized in more of a tuned, pitch-stretched way. It's not a huge range, but neither is the original instrument. So let's take a listen to some of this. This tuned version is also round robin sampled, so you can actually make cool glissandos and cool arpeggios and such like you would with any normal instrument. However, it is still going to be slightly out of tune because the original pitches were not in tune with themselves. So it's still going to have a weird, otherworldly sound. Let's take a listen if we were to play through some of it. Next, we have probably my favorite patch because it's the most natural to the instrument itself. This is what I think the instrument was born to do, and that's to strum, to create these horrific glissandos that just take over the track that you're working on. So let's play through some of these. So lots of variety there. And then last but not least, we have woods, where drumsticks and the wood of a bow were used to strike and do all kinds of crazy sounds here on the harp. So let's take a listen to the woods. So as fun as these sounds are right out of the box, they are super usable in any horror type scary context. However, I do encourage you, if you start playing around with these sounds, give these knobs a try, because when you start mixing them together, especially if you want to start reversing your samples with the key switches, you can come up with some crazy stuff that's really going to be very haunting. So let's just take a moment to showcase what some of these knobs might sound like if we play around for just a moment. I hope you have such a blast playing around with Horror Harp version 2. Check it out today. Hope you have such a blast with it. See you guys next time.